Hello everyone, I'm Sarah Swinson, and today in this video we are going to be going over our chromosomes and karyotypes. One thing to note with our chromosomes is basically chromosomes are made up of DNA that are coiled very tightly around some sort of protein. So DNA coils up very tightly in the nucleus of cells, and that is what's going to form the chromosomes. Now, DNA is typically stored in the nucleus of eukaryotes, and it is stored as chromatin. So if we take a look down here in our picture, whenever we have a mass of DNA like this, where it's all stringy and just kind of a big old mess, this is known as chromatin. It's basically a mess of DNA. Now, when a cell is getting ready to divide and chromosomes need to be able to move about, and we need to divide our DNA up equally between the cells, this DNA is going to coil up, as you see here, in order to form a chromosome. And they will usually coil around something called histone proteins. Alright, so this is going to bring us to the pieces of our chromosomes that you guys will need to know. First things first, we're going to start off with a very simple structure here, and that is your DNA. So DNA, or your chromatin, eventually it's going to coil up around these histone proteins. When the DNA coils up around histone proteins, it actually forms something called a nucleosome. These nucleosomes are going to continue to coil up, so the DNA just keeps on coiling until eventually we get the chromosome. Now, technically, this is one unduplicated chromosome, and this is actually one duplicated chromosome. So both of these structures are chromosomes. So unduplicated, duplicated. Now, usually with a duplicated chromosome, each side is called a chromatid. So when you've got one side of the chromosome, that's called a chromatid. So usually we call the two chromatids in a chromosome sister chromatids. Now, one thing to note in biology that anytime you see sister or daughter, we usually mean identical copies. So sister chromatids, identical chromatids. Daughter cells, identical cells. And then usually what holds the sister chromatids together is this part, which is called the centromere. Centromere is also found here in our unduplicated chromosome, but again, this is where the duplicated chromosomes will actually attach and they are held together. Now, also parts of our chromosomes is anytime you have the short arm near the centromere, so the shorter part of the centromere, that we call this the P arm, also known as the short arm. And the longer section of the chromosome past the centromere, we call this the Q arm or the long arm. Also, one thing to note is basically anytime you see these little bands here, these are actually representing alleles of your DNA. So the alleles are different forms of a gene. So you are actually going to be identifying the different alleles between you, your mom, and your dad. We are going to be looking at our different chromosomes here, and each of these bands, again, is an allele. So as you can see right here, we have allele A. So this is allele A, and allele A. So for allele A, you're going to look at hair color. So if mom has blonde hair, you're going to color it yellow. If mom has brown hair, you're going to color it brown. If mom has black hair, you color it black. Red hair, red, and so on and so forth. And do the same thing for your dad's alleles as well. So whatever hair color, you're going to color it that here. And then you're also going to do your own hair color and see the differences between your mom, dad, and you, and see where you get your traits from. You're going to do this for allele B, which is eye color. So allele B is this one, all the way across. Again, you're going to color blue for blue eyes, brown for brown eyes, green for green eyes, and so on and so forth. Allele C, these are going to be the presence of freckles or absence of freckles. So allele C, these are this one. You're going to color it blue if anyone has the freckles, and orange for no freckles. Allele D, right here, this is going to be determining the presence of a widow's peak. So for a widow's peak, if anyone has that, you're going to color that allele yellow. Now, a widow's peak is when you have your hairline that comes down to a peak like this on your forehead. And then green is going to be a straight hairline where it goes all the way across. And the last trait you're going to look at are your earlobes. So there's attached earlobes and free earlobes. Attached earlobes is when the bottom of your earlobe is actually attached straight to your face or to the side of your neck. And a free earlobe is when it goes down and then back up. So now's a good time to pause the video and fill out the alleles on your paper with your traits, your dad's traits, and your mom's traits. An attached earlobe is going to be green, free earlobes are going to be red, and that is going to go in this allele column right here. All right, so this is going to bring us to our last two questions here. Do homologous chromosomes have the same gene? So right here, these two chromosomes are exactly the same, so we call these homologous. So homo means same, so homologous chromosomes, same type of gene, or same type of chromosomes. They do actually have the same genes, but then the next question says, do the homologous chromosomes have different forms of the same genes? Yes. So they have the same genes. So you have gene A, B, C, D, and E. However, there are different forms of that same gene, and we call those alleles. So this is going to bring us to our different types of chromosomes found in our cells. Sex chromosomes are going to determine the individual's gender. So if we have XX, that is typically going to be a female, and XY is going to be a male. This is kind of what your sex chromosomes look like from a karyotype, or basically a map of someone's chromosomes. So X chromosomes are really long and really large, and the Y chromosome is actually very short. So if you see a really long chromosome and a really short chromosome together, that's usually a male. Two long chromosomes, you got a female. So this brings us to this question: which chromosome is much smaller than the other? It's going to be the Y chromosome. Why is it so much smaller? Because it only contains the male characteristics. So I do want you guys to color the X chromosome red and the Y chromosome blue. So now the rest of your chromosomes in your cells are called autosomes. So we only have one pair of chromosomes that are sex chromosomes, but we have 22 pairs of chromosomes on top of that. And the rest of those are called autosomes. So those are the rest of your chromosomes. So here you got your sex chromosomes, and then that means the rest of your chromosomes in your cells are the autosomes. So in total, we have 46 chromosomes in our somatic cells. Now, anytime you see the word somatic, somatic means body cells. So these are going to be your skin cells, your hair cells, your liver cells, your blood cells. So any type of body cells, those are somatic cells. So we have 46 chromosomes in each cell. Now, this is going to bring us to a karyotype. Chromosomes will get organized by shape and size into something called a karyotype. That is actually what we see right here. So your largest chromosomes are going to be chromosome number 1 and all the way up to chromosome pair number 22. So 46 chromosomes in total, 23 pairs in total. So it goes from large, all the way to small. And then the last section we have are your sex chromosomes. We always put the sex chromosomes off to the side. Okay, so the other thing I want you guys to do is I want you to label your karyotype. Every chromosome is actually numbered. So this is chromosome pair number 1, chromosome pair number 2, chromosome pair 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to chromosome pair number 22. And again, the last pair that we have here, these are your sex chromosomes. And here we have the one big one, which is an X, and one small one, so that's a Y. So if we have XY, this means we have a male. So this is going to bring us to the process of amniocentesis. So amniocentesis is where we remove some amniotic fluid from around the baby, which then we can use that to organize the chromosomes into a karyotype. So usually if a mother's a little bit older or something like that, or the parents are a little bit older, sometimes doctors will actually encouraged to have a karyotype done of the baby to see whether or not they could have, if the baby could have a chromosomal abnormality. Usually, if someone is a little bit older and they are having children, there is a higher chance for the chromosomal abnormality to occur, like Down syndrome. So chromosomal abnormalities, these are going to result in certain types of syndromes or disorders, and these are able to be discovered through karyotype. Now, chromosomal abnormalities usually derive from something called non-disjunction. Non-disjunction is basically when these chromosomes fail to separate, kind of like you see here, they fail to separate when the cells divide, and then that ends up with having too many chromosomes in a cell or not enough. So, there are many different types of chromosomal abnormalities. First one we are going to be looking at is Down syndrome. So, Down syndrome, this is where we have 3 copies of chromosome number 21, or also known as trisomy 21. So, tri meaning 3. So, again, everything is in base pairs. So, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to chromosome number 21. And you can see that there's 3 copies and not just pairs. So, Down syndrome, 3 copies of number 21. So the other thing to look at is in this karyotype, we have 2X chromosomes, so XX, which means that they are female. They have an extra copy of number 21, and this syndrome is called Down syndrome. So the other one we're going to look at is Patau syndrome. Patau syndrome is basically where there's 3 copies of chromosome number 13. So you can see it right here, chromosome number 13, there's an extra copy of the chromosomes. Everything else is in pairs. Again, let's try to figure out the sex of the baby. So again, sex chromosomes are always found at the bottom right. Here we have X and X. So this is XX, which is female. So here we have a female with an extra chromosome for number 13, which means they have Patau syndrome. So a few things about Patau syndrome is usually these babies don't live very long. They have a lot of different birth defects. So there's usually cardiac defects, so problems with their hearts, problems with their kidneys. Sometimes they'll actually have 6 fingers on a hand and rock bottom feet, and a lot of times they are born with a cleft lip or palate. So this is going to bring us to Klinefelter syndrome. Klinefelter syndrome is a male that has an extra X chromosome. So this is also known as XXY syndrome. So with Klinefelter syndrome, if we look at the sex chromosomes, we can see that he has 2 X's and a Y. So this male, since he has a Y chromosome, he's male, but he has an extra X chromosome. So because of that, these males usually end up with more female characteristics. So they might have narrow shoulders, larger hips, longer legs, more female characteristics from this because of the extra X chromosome. So again, XXY, male, the abnormality is the extra X chromosome, and this syndrome is called Klinefelter's. This brings us to Edwards syndrome. Edwards syndrome is when you have 3 copies of chromosome number 18, as you can see here. So everything's in pairs except for this part. One thing to kind of look at too is right here. This is the sex chromosomes. We have an X and we have a Y. So XY, this is a male. Again, the chromosomal abnormality is an extra number 18. And this is Edwards syndrome. So a few things about Edwards syndrome. These individuals usually have a very small mouth, a small jaw, very short neck. They even have more of this protrusion of their skull, malformed ears, and clenched hands that where their fingers overlap quite a bit. Usually these individuals are characterized with having a shield chest, as you can see here, and a very prominent sternum and wide set nipples. And then the last one we have is Turner syndrome. So Turner syndrome, this is also known as monosomy X. So mono means one, so 1X. So these females only have 1X chromosome. They are missing a sex chromosome. So everything's in pairs again, except for this part, only 1X. So these females usually have more male-like characteristics because they are missing that X chromosome.